on the front lines of the battle against IS. This video was sent to SBS News not by a Kurdish fighter but former Liberal MP Wyatt Roy. You can see him here crouching from the gunfire.
15 Daesh soldiers attacked the position that we were at for about half an hour. Once they had pushed them back, they were very adamant that we get in the car and we drive as fast as we could in the other direction. So I drove us as fast as we could back to the town of Sinjar.
Speaking days later from the relative safety of Erbil, he describes what happened next.
We were attacked. It was obviously quite a serious situation. The Peshmerga called in an airstrike, and probably within half an hour or 40 minutes, the jets were overhead.
The Combined Joint Task Force states there was an airstrike on that day near Sinjar which hit an IS tactical unit and suppressed a heavy machine gun. Mr Roy says he's long been passionate and outspoken about the plight of minorities, especially the ethnic Yazidis who were raped or massacred in their thousands by IS.
Those religious and ethnic minorities in northern Iraq are facing, as President Obama said, potential genocide.
Yesterday, he was scheduled to speak at an Iraqi university on his former innovation portfolio. At 20, Mr Roy won the seat of Longman, the youngest ever MP. After his defeat in July, he said he was happy to spend more time just being 26. A counter-terrorism expert from ANU says Mr Roy's showing his youth by putting himself in physical and legal danger.
He could quite easily be in breach of Australian legislation which prohibits people to go to those sorts of conflict zones. If he does get involved in conflict, he's certainly in a very grey area.
And that he's undermined the government's message discouraging Australians who want to join the fight.
And this sort of act is irresponsible because they've sent a very strong message to young people, for whatever reason, for good or for bad, to not go across to Syria and Iraq.
The Shadow Foreign Minister Penny Wong told SBS News that this is a very unwise and dangerous act for a former Member of Parliament who should be expected to know better. War zones are not places for people to act out their boyhood fantasies, she said, and called on the government to immediately clarify what it knew about the trip. SBS News has contacted the Defence Minister's office for a response. Mr Roy is on a flight out of Iraq. Daniela Retorto, SBS World News.
An intriguing situation. Let's get more now from our SBS chief political correspondent, Daniela Retorto, who joins us live from Canberra. Daniela, what's the government got to say about this?
Anton, we put in several questions to the Defence Minister's office of Marise Payne. She's come back to us just in the last little while. This statement is rather curious in that it doesn't mention Wyatt Roy by name, but instead gives some general comments about Australia's role in Iraq and how the international forces are supporting those Kurdish Peshmerga fighters in the battle against IS. The statement also gives the general advice about Mosul. That is a declared area under Australian law, and it is an offence to travel there because it's been declared as an area where hostile activity is taking place and terrorists are occupying. But we've checked the map, and Sinjar, where Wyatt Roy was, is just outside of that prescribed area, just on the border, frankly. So while Wyatt Roy doesn't appear to have broken any Australian laws on that front, the Australian government's advice is to strongly advise against anyone travelling to Syria or Iraq. So he may not have broken any laws, but as a former Liberal MP, he has contravened the government's strong advice against any travel to Iraq.